Hi, I'm David Terra, watcher of cloud and security and emerging technology issues. And today I'm reporting for Disruptive Live with my friends from Barracuda and Microsoft. So I'd like you to introduce yourselves. I've got Chris and Gerd with me. So Chris, maybe you could start and introduce yourself and the company.
You bet. Good afternoon. Good to see you again. My name's Chris Hill. I work for Barracuda, and my job here at Barracuda is to look after our public cloud business across the Europe, Middle East and Africa regions, and also the Asia Pacific regions.
Excellent.
So yeah, I'm Gerd. I'm managing the relationship between Microsoft and Barracuda. I'm a global partner development manager, and happy to be here today.
Excellent. Kind of as a way of introducing what Barracuda does, can you tell us the kind of issues that a typical customer has got to deal with?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, we are a cybersecurity company. We make products that protect against the threats for customers' data, certainly their email, network, and applications, and that could apply to on-premise solutions or within the public cloud. And that's obviously one of the reasons I'm here today. With Microsoft, and we're talking about security in the cloud. So, we want to make sure that we can make sure everyone's journey to Azure is as safe as can be, and that's one of the areas we focus on.
Do you want to add anything, Gerd?
No, I think, Chris mentioned it correctly. We are great partners for several years. Barracuda is managed as one of the global partners within Microsoft, and we have a great relationship since several years.
Excellent. Now, in today's environment, most organisations, probably every organisation, is actually dealing with a multi-cloud world. We have that as a reality. So what sort of things should an organisation be considering in dealing with that?
That's a good question, and there's a couple of areas you can really take that. I think, skills is certainly one area, and then the threats that come with that. And I'd also touch on compliance at the end. But skills, I think, we've spoken about this on this show before, about that famous term loft, yes, which is, the lack of freaking talent, which I think is great. And it really sums up one of the areas that customers are trying to figure out how to make sure they are skilled enough within the area of cloud to make sure they're protected. There are probably up to 600 services now across the three major cloud platforms, with thousands of new services being added every quarter. So, how do you stay up to speed with that? So, we need to be able to help them with that journey, make sure they stay safe along the way. And in turn, that's the compliance that comes with that. So there's definitely hybrid, there's definitely multi-cloud everywhere. You need to make sure you're skilled and stay safe and stay compliant along the way. So if we can put a wrapper around all those three areas and help people along that journey, then I think we're on the way to achieving the goal.
What's Microsoft's view on that?
We are clearly one of the biggest cloud provider, and what we believe is we believe in choices for customers. We understand that there is a multi-cloud world out there. Nevertheless, we want to build the greatest services for our customers that they attract our platform clearly. From a security and compliance perspective, I think working in these changing environments, it's really important for customers to give them tools to stay up to date and to give them an easy capability to really understand what's going on from a security and compliance perspective. And what we are doing is really trying to build that foundation that people and partners can plug into it and give that transparency to the customer, basically.
I'll ask you first now, Gerd. Are there particular threats that the customers should be aware of?
So from a threats perspective, I think, clearly there are a lot of threats out there. What we see nowadays as more and more services are becoming, or more and more devices are becoming connected, we are also seeing more and more services being available over the internet, which gives more vulnerabilities basically for these applications. So we have a lot of devices out there that can do DDoS attacks, as an example. And we from Microsoft provide services, basic services, to protect against these kind of attacks. That's certainly one of the interesting points at the moment.
Excellent. Chris?
I think when you approach the threat subject, it's funny because you can look at it from two sides. So there's quite a well-used Gartner quote out there that says that 80% of data center breaches will be caused by an insider threat by next year, 2020. But then we also have a very large bank on a public cloud platform that says the public cloud is safer than on-premise. So how can you have both? Now, personally, I've been working with the cloud for some years now, and I totally believe that the cloud can be a safer place purely by the way the architecture is made. You can split it out a lot more than you can on-premise. So I think the threats that you know and love, that you hear about every day, the data breaches, the misconfigurations, account takeovers, they're all still alive and well, and we have to protect against those. But if you look at if you can replicate the customer's experience on premise within the cloud and give them that warm fuzzy feeling as they move to the cloud, to make sure that they're used to the tools and the functionality in the code of an on-premise security solution within the cloud, but on a solution that is has evolved for a cloud, then we're in a really good place. Yeah.
Excellent. Now we've got Gerd from Microsoft here, and obviously I know you guys do a lot around Office 365. That's often an organisation's first step into the cloud. So tell us a bit about what you do to help around Office 365 and how that maps into the journey into the cloud for a customer. Yeah,
it's interesting. For us, as I said at the beginning, we're a security company, but it's not always necessarily the first conversation that we start with, that we receive from a customer when we talk Office 365. That they will often ask us, can I take all my archiving? Do I have to lose some stuff? Will I still be able to keep these emails for legal reasons? And they have those kind of archiving and backup questions first, that then once they're over that, and they can obviously benefit from this awesome platform, and then we talk about the security after that. So we address that in a layered approach to make sure we stay current, giving them the basic email protection, and then dealing with spear phishing, and then on to user training afterwards. But in terms of the journey, our mission is to make sure it's secure. So if we can help with the first parts and backup and archiving, and get them on the journey, then we see that SaaS solution as being the first dip in the cloud, and then once they're successfully happy with their secure experience, we can then help them with the rest of the workloads they want to take across in a secure manner.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Gerd, obviously I know that Barracuda is a big Microsoft partner. Tell us a bit about why you're working with partners and why you're working with a company like Barracuda.
So, we are a platform provider, and we have been that for several years. So what we really want to do is we want to enable customers in our mission statement to do more. And to do that, we really need to give them possibilities and flexibility in the end. And historically, partnerships have always been really essential to our company. Clearly in different spaces. It's starting in the infrastructure space, security, compliance, but also in other spaces like with directly vertical solution providers, as an example. So with Barracuda, I think the interesting part is that partners are really embracing new services also in the cloud and adapting to that and leveraging that within their current systems. What we see as a good example is, for example, in the integration with Centennial that you are currently doing, which is a kind of a security feature or a security product on the Azure side, as well as the firewall integrations that we are having, firewall as a service that you are providing. All these kind of capabilities are really giving customers flexibility to meet them or to meet their needs, basically.
Excellent. Now, Chris, putting you on the spot here a bit, what's it like being a Microsoft partner?
Well, it's awesome, David, obviously. Joking aside, I think everyone always knew that Microsoft were a channel-first company, but they may not have known that they're an ISV-first company as well. So behind the scenes, the effort they put into creating an environment for us to be successful is very powerful. So, I think maybe via a stroke of good fortune, or however you want to look at it, when we started our Azure journey, it was simply because our firewalls architecture fitted the earlier editions of Azure. And we grew together, and from that we created a cloud generation set of products which was perfectly suited for Azure. And from that, we've learned together, grown together, evolved our security solutions for that. Which ultimately then provides a really good set of roadmaps of where we're heading to. So in terms of a partner, they've been very supportive for our own journey, if you like, within that. So yeah, very, very good place to be.
Excellent. Can you both tell us a bit about how an organisation deals with compliance across this complicated landscape?
So, from our perspective, what we are seeing is that compliance and the requirements are changing or they are adapting. What I always say is basically that people had compliancy and regulatory requirements already on the on-premise side, but by moving to the cloud, they are just exposed and they are becoming more visible. I think that people have the feeling like moving data or moving kind of servers out of their own home is something different. So what we are trying to do to address that is really giving tools to our customers as well as to our partners that help address these compliancy topics. So one good example is Azure policies, where you can define certain kind of rules that have to be, or that will be enforced or will be checked against your current subscription within Azure. Another one is Azure blueprints, where you can define a set of policies into one group, basically, so that you can say, for example, you are compliant in a certain region. So in the cloud, I think we have tools now available compared to the on-premises side that really give a right and direct insight into your compliance setting that you're currently having in the cloud.
Yeah, definitely tools, and I'd probably link back to something we were talking about earlier as well in terms of how you stay compliant. So if you don't have the skill set and you go in and, for example, take a default view of the cloud provider's settings, those default settings can change from time to time. If you're not watching them overnight, you could fall out of compliancy. So that's a danger. So tools are absolutely key. We have a tool within Azure called Cloud Security Guardian, which actually loads a set of benchmarks for particular compliance rules that you can check your environment against constantly. So that is a kind of an umbrella, if you like, watching over the shoulder of the customer as they're going about either their developing or production life cycles, and you can make sure as soon as something does flip out of check, we can bring them back into step. So tools, absolutely, you definitely need some helping hand along the way to stay compliant.
Excellent. Yeah. In this kind of multi-cloud, hybrid cloud world, because we're dealing with both on-premise applications for many customers as well as the cloud, do you think we're kind of talking about or looking at cloud security in maybe a different fashion now?
It does get a little bit confusing at times, but I think when you step back, the cloud was so attractive in the early days that you could spin a workload up in a heartbeat, and you suddenly saw tons and tons of entry points into the cloud, and that started to scare people, certainly with compliance. So we just touched on there. You have no idea if this is in a compliant deployment. But then if you step back and look at what we were doing on premise, we protect networks and we protect applications. And so how do we enable a Microsoft customer that wants to go to Azure securely? So we would literally take that code set and apply that to the journey. So we're able to offer a secure connection, office to cloud. So that's the first piece. You've got your pipe to Azure, and that can come with many features and functionalities, whether it be multi-routing, encryption, however you want to look at that connection to the cloud, MPLS, internet, however you want to get there. That is something we can provide as the first step. Then you provide an entry point into Azure, and once you're in there, we can check, are you allowed in or not? And once they're allowed in, we can send them to the destination you want to go to. But that's all with a familiar code set that the customer's used to on cloud. So it's not necessarily inventing something new. This is, we've stretched your perimeter, we've moved it further away, but we need a little bit more control over who you're letting in, and we can replicate that with the skills they're already used to.
Excellent. Have you got anything in brief to add, Gerd?
No, I think it was described quite nicely. I think the bigger complexity that is now coming in is basically that you have a connectivity that you need to protect as well. And this is certainly something that is important and where we are working together, giving kind of additional network connectivity functionality to the customers. Last quick question to both of you. What do you think the customers should be bringing kind of front and center? What they should they be focusing on?
I think you look at any research, any analyst, security always seems to be the blocker to go to the cloud first. So as I've always said, security has to be a built-in, not a bolt-on. If you bolt it on afterwards, the financial penalty is going to be a lot harder to fix it. So always build it in up front.
Excellent. Good.
I would agree. I mean, security is certainly an essential topic, and I would really encourage people to think about it up front already, but be not afraid of the cloud, because the cloud gives capabilities that are even enhanced to what they currently have on premise.
Excellent. Good. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you check back to barracuda.com, you'll get more content like this and more information about the topics we've been talking about. Thank you very much.